Item C.
Yes, sir. City
Item
Attorney.
C, Kevin is going to handle for us. I know you've spent some time on this. So.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. At the last meeting, I was asked by the council to review whether or not a ordinance requiring the attendance of a city attorney at city council and workshop meetings was required, and if so, to draft one. After review of the city code requires attendance of the city attorney at all regular city council meetings and at the request of any council member. So therefore, I don't believe a ordinance is necessary, that the city attorney will have to be present at all regularly scheduled meetings, and at the request of a alderman and any other meeting, should be a special meeting or any other type of meeting. Should situation change, we can always modify the city code accordingly.
And you're suggesting that the reference to a regular meeting includes a workshop meeting and a regular meeting?
Correct, because the city utilizes a workshop meeting as you demonstrated tonight, as also a regular meeting where regular business is taken care of, including passing ordinances and resolutions that would include workshop meetings as well as the regular city council meeting. Should that change, obviously, we can discuss that in the future.
Now, if someone requests it for these other meetings other than the regular meetings so-called, what if someone requests not to have an attorney?
If there's a request for the attorney not to appear at a regularly scheduled meeting, so a regular workshop meeting or regular council meeting, that would be contrary to the city code. It would only be, you can only ask the attorney to appear at any outside meeting. So if there's a request for the city attorney to appear at a ZBA meeting or a special budget meeting or something along those lines, made by any council member, the code requires that the city attorney be present at the request of a city council member.
So if the city council member requests an attorney be present at the PZBA, it only takes one person to make that motion,
Correct.
and the attorney would then be obligated to attend.
Correct, and it would be for that one meeting, on an ad hoc basis.
All right, questions, please?
Sir, if I may?
Yes?
I've been wondering why the attorney isn't in attendance at the ZBA meetings any longer. Anyway, it used to be, at the beginning of my tenure, there was an attorney present at every meeting, and that has kind of gone by the wayside, and I think it's kind of an important tool to have at those meetings. So is there a reason that the attorney is not present at those meetings any longer?
That predates my time. I don't know why the decision was made by the council not to have an attorney at the ZBA meetings.
I don't recall ever making a decision not to have an attorney at the ZBA meetings, and forgive me if I'm incorrect. But
the city code doesn't require the attorney to be there, and so if there is a direction that the city attorney not attend those meetings, that was probably followed by my predecessor, but I can't speak to the reasoning behind why that decision was made.
okay, Mayor, do you have any idea?
No, because I'm the one that asked this question at the last meeting. Why is it okay that way, and why are we forced to have an attorney this way? And I was addressing costs, not personalities, and not...
No, and I'm not insinuating. I'm just questioning when it comes to ZBA, because in my mind, they're working with legal issues at every meeting, and I don't know why you wouldn't have an attorney present.
Right, they've had no requests, for example. And
I think
I remember Jeff being here from, I think he was from Freshman.
Jeff Stein, yeah.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but as time went by, I just noticed in the last month that, well, gee, they don't have an attorney. Why do we need one? Not, again, for personalities or firms or anything like that. That's to do with cost. Right now, we're chugging at $175,000, and we don't seem to work enough, in my opinion, on increasing income. And we agonize meeting after meeting that we're going to be losing money in the future. What are we doing about bringing in money? I spent my entire career here at the city hall to bring in business. And I think that's a better solution, and cut expenses where you can, where it makes sense, or where at least everybody's in agreement. So I don't know the answer to your question.
Okay, in response to what you're saying, I think that's kind of penny wise and pound foolish, because you can put yourself into a pretty costly, or paint yourself into a pretty costly corner with just one mistake. So, given the cost of having an attorney at each meeting, I think is minimal compared to the risk that you take not having an attorney at those meetings.
Yeah, you have a point. I'm not arguing the point. I do see that we take the budget annually, and we might add 10% to the attorney's costs, and schedule out in this budget $125,000. We already spent $175 in the last grouping, the last 10-year time. So it's not a point, but if you want to, can we direct that their attorney must be present at the PZBA? Or the council?
The council can, if they want to direct me to do so, that can be made by motion. If they would like that codified in the city code, we can draft an ordinance codifying that. That's at the council's discretion.
I don't want this to be a one-sided conversation. I'd love to hear from the rest of council and see where they sit with this.
But isn't every decision that's made by the PZBA goes to council anyway and is put on the agenda for a council meeting? So, I mean, if there's an issue, it could come up at council, but I mean, I haven't seen any problems with PZBA issues that are legal that even have come up with council for the last almost 4 years. So I don't know why you would need an attorney at the meeting itself. If we're going to, all their decisions are coming to council anyway. If you're going to have an attorney present at the council meetings, that should be able to be enough to deal with any issue that could come up.
There have been issues, but nothing I want to bring up right now, but there
I
have been issues.
haven't heard of anything in the last 4 years, almost 4 years.
We can talk about it.
I would like to hear from the members of the PZBA and see if they feel they need an attorney at every meeting. And then I guess a legal question while we have our attorney is, if something comes up, are they able to table a matter like we are and then request that the attorney be present at the next meeting? So if they don't think they need an attorney present at every meeting, but something comes up and there's not an attorney there, they're able to address it at that.
Okay. You have a resource right here in Mark Roscoe, who used to serve on the PZBA.
But does he currently serve on it? Well, you know,
No, but I mean, he's-
I'd like to hear from those currently on it,
Correct.
what they feel they need to.
But many of those have never had an attorney versus Mark's tenure. Didn't you had an attorney most?
I
every
could.
time?
Recently, leaving the ZBA, I was on for almost 9 years. During that time, I believe we had, I'm going to guess, 3 or 4 meetings where we had an attorney present based on the project at hand and the different issues that were in front of us. Probably 2 meetings that we had, I recall, where we tabled something till we could get attorney input and then pushed it to the next meeting. As the ZBA is just a recommending body to city council, it has the opportunity to get reviewed. So in my tenure there, when we had a high-profile issue in front of us, the city attorney was present. But 4 times in 9 years.
Okay. So you don't think it's needed at every meeting, your personal?
My personal opinion as being a past member.
And Laura, just to answer the Mark alluded to tabling items. The ZBA operates under generally the same rules that the council does in terms of procedural rules, so they can table. The code does have some requirements in terms of, there's timelines for hearing certain matters that they have to adhere to, but I think that either the ZBA is already aware of that, or we can make them aware of that, so they can't table something too long and run afoul of the city code. But generally, yeah, they can table items, and if they require assistance, request the attendance of a city attorney at the next meeting and bring it up at that meeting.
And then as we get our agenda in advance, they usually have an idea of what's coming before them, before their meeting too. So as long as it's enough notice for you or John to get there, or if not, then
Right.
tabling the
The only issue would be if something came up at the meeting that they didn't anticipate, where they may not be able to table it because it came up during discussion or a presentation or something like that.
Okay.
Can't they table it? Why couldn't they table it?
They could table it, but
Yeah.
they wouldn't be able to preemptively table something, and there might be questions, legal questions or legal issues that get raised before they're able to table something, that's all.
Well, if they're operating under the same rules that we was operate under, and it comes to a point where they didn't anticipate legal counsel being needed, and now they do, one of the members can raise a motion to table.
Correct. I'm just saying that prior to that, there might be discussion or comments made or question that's asked that may have some sort of impact. I don't think it's a serious issue, I'm just saying that's the only context of it.
I have a question about it that's more to try to quantify what we're talking about. And for that, I need some information, maybe from Director Peterson. Approximately, what is the duration of a PZBA meeting?
Typically, the PZBA has been averaging less than an hour on most cases. Yes, the truck ordinance has taken longer and a couple of other issues, but from my experience, we are dealing with a lot of smaller side yard variations, a lot of special use. And whenever we have a case, I do consult with the attorney. They do get reviewed before we go hand text amendments, and that information is shared with the PZBA. So we do consult beforehand to try and see if there's any issues that may come up. And at this point in time, there hasn't necessarily been, in my opinion, the need for them on the level.
For
But,
legal counsel to be there all the time?
correct.
But does the PZBA need a motion then, or need some kind of action from the council saying that they can, when the issue presents itself where they require legal counsel, can they request that? Is that already on our books?
I'm not sure, I'd have to research that. However, from a staff perspective, and I communicate with all the PZBA members on issues to make sure that they're aware before the meeting, after they get their packets. And I have consulted previously with Mr. Zimmerman when we were talking about a text amendment on the group home, whether he should be there or not. We talked regarding the garage issue in the floodplain from Glendale earlier this year. So I'm reviewing this in advance, and if there are issues, we can always bring it back. And in another town where we did this, I have recommended that meetings and items be tabled if there's a question on legality. So we're aware of those
And
issues.
we already have that provision on our books, am I correct?
Through the hearing process, yes.
Yeah.
And just to answer your question about whether or not a PZBA member can request the attendance of an attorney, the code doesn't grant them that authority. So it would just require, and a suggestion I might make is maybe the alderman in whose ward the project is located, make that request, because it takes just one council member to request city attorney presence, and then I can attend the meeting, or someone else can attend the meeting. But the ZBA doesn't have that authority.
Kevin, the only problem with that is if it's a zoning issue that's not specific to an area, you know, trying to think of an example. When we had the group home issue, that was a specific area, but we weren't granting a variance or any kind of relief for that address. It was more just.
It was a
code
general city code, yeah.
So I almost think that if you're talking about your garden variety setbacks, different things like that, heights, whatnot, where it really is just 5 people come into an agreement if they agree with something or not, yeah, I don't know that you really need it. But when you get into something where there's a request to change the city code, or there's a request that has some kind of higher authority jurisdiction like this group home, or even when we get into PUDs. I can't imagine ZBA having any meeting where you're having discussions about what's going to be in a PUD without the attorney being there for all the meetings, even if some of them are just purely simple, setting up the stage for the PUD. I think he should be there for all that. So I think in my mind, I know what I'd want them there for, but it's kind of hard to define that and say, okay, this is when they need to be there. But we do need probably some ordinance change to create a mechanism to allow that call to be made, to have you there or somebody there, because right now it doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't. And yeah, if you would like to give the ZBA, perhaps the ZBA chairman, authority to request attorney presence, we can add that to the code via ordinance, or alternatively, staff or the ZBA chairman can circulate a request to the elected officials laying out the need for a city attorney at the next meeting and requesting that the council approve that. I mean, that would add an extra layer of work for the council and for everyone involved, but that wouldn't require a code change.
I would want the chairman deciding whether or not an attorney's got to be there for a PUD issue. I think that's something they should be there for. So somehow or another, we have to come up with something. There's got to be something that we can lift from some other code that meets the needs that we're looking for as far as when the city attorney is present at ZBA meetings, because every time I think about it, there's an exemption why we should have them or why it's not necessary, but I think it needs to be defined so it's a little more automatic when it is needed.
I can take a look and see if I can find something. I mean, the other way we could go about it is just not necessarily formalizing it, and if I'm directed by the staff or a council to attend a ZBA meeting that seems to require city attorney presence, I just go, and maybe it doesn't require a code change. But I'll look in and see if I can find something that satisfies the issues that you've raised.
Kevin, before you look into that, Dan, are you aware of something like that?
In the 25 years I've been doing this, I have never come across it in any city code that requires it. However, in one municipality I was at, there was things such as large subdivisions. PUDs would have to be reviewed with the manager and the city attorney to see if the items were warranted prior to the hearing. So there was one town I worked in, they had 4 items. It was, like I said, subdivision work, PUDs, anything that had to have dealing with de-annexation, annexation, those types of things would have to have been consulted prior to see if an attorney was requested, and that was a decision between the director, staff, and the attorney, or the manager and the attorney.
And just so the council's aware, when we're talking about we've talked about annexation and other items before, and I'm involved in those conversations. It's just, I haven't been requested to attend a ZBA meeting. But
And please don't take my recommendation or my suggestion the wrong way. It was really, I recognize that there are a group of professionals. I mean, we have engineers, we have contractors, we have an architect, and they're certainly capable of thinking on their own 2 feet, but I guess it's important for all to know that this tool, this resource is at their disposal. And should they feel the need to have it, it should be communicated that it's there for them. Okay, and I'll accept, that an attorney doesn't need to be present at all meetings, but they should know that it's there. Okay, and
If they have
as
it,
far,
yeah.
right, and as far as a council member, requesting it, it certainly isn't something that has to wait to another meeting. So if the chairperson of the committee says, hey, I want to have an attorney, they can speak to any one of those, and if they deem it necessary, they request the attorney presence.
Yeah.
All right.
Procedurally, on that request, did you say that the chair could request?
Yeah. Request.
Yeah, I
Through
would
us.
like that flow to be, for purposes of some type of management control, I would like that flow to be, let the chair discuss that with the staff liaison for that committee, and in turn with the city administrator, who then can say yes or no about contact.
Right, and put it in writing, and,
Right,
yeah, it should be a written request and
right.
go to staff, sure. I can agree with that.
Okay.
So,
we
thank
move
you.
on? Are you ready to move on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it.